Okay, so one of the first things you gotta do is get the connector away from the wheel bearing circuit, which it is connected to this harness over here, and then it's actually stuck in place right there. So okay, then pry that away. I need to get the connector out of this part. There's just two pop tabs on that connector. And then this wiring goes to the side. Okay, so what we're going to do next is actually disconnect the brake caliper. It uses a T55 socket. So now we're going to move the brake caliper pins with the T55 Torx bit. Once you get them free, you might have a stuck slide. But okay, then you need to take an 18mm wrench. And these will be pretty stuck on there, so you gotta break them loose. I'm using a ratchet wrench. What I did to loosen them up, use my 18mm, and I locked my big wrench together with it to create a long extension to break it loose. Okay, set those bolts aside, remove the caliper bracket. Now the rotor is either going to be stuck on or it's going to pop off, so easy thing to do, just take a hammer in between the studs and you should break it free. Pop off our cap to expose the axle nut. So we're just take a small screwdriver, kind of give it a wedge effect, go around, use a twisting motion with the flat blade of the screwdriver, and it'll pop out and exposing our 36mm axle nut. So now I usually use an impact to remove the axle nut, but if you don't have one available, what you can do is use a pry bar. In this case I'm using a breaker bar. To remove it, and you can just go like this until it loosens up. And just do that, but I'm gonna get the air tool out and remove this, speed up the video. Okay, so when you're going to remove the bearing, make sure you oil. Just use WD-40, PB Blaster, something, and lube up the bearing. Get this soaking as you're working on getting those bolts out. Like you're going from the back side. Just a little bit up that way. You'll notice we got 3 bolts to take out. One right there, one at the top, and one on the other side. One on the other side in that location. There's a 10mm bolt to hold this bracket or the brake hose on. And this just gets it completely out of your way. You don't need to worry about the caliper being here. You just lift that away. Also, there's one up here that's already been removed. So we'll take the caliper, tuck it up under. And set it away so it won't get damaged. So then I find the easiest way to do this is actually to remove the upper ball joint. So it's an 18mm wrench. Okay, and to free it, you just hit it right on the knuckle. This gives you clear access to the wheel bearing bolts, especially this like 15mm 3-inch extension. This is a 15mm socket you're going to need to remove the bolts. Like I said, this upper one is the one that will take you forever if you don't remove the ball joint. The knuckle. And it's free, so use an air ratchet for the rest of the way. So now we're going to go after this 15mm bolt. The bolt is free. If you're having trouble getting the bolt out, just push forward on the axle and you should be able to slip it out. So technically the wheel bearing is free floating. This is where I would hook the upper ball joint back up, because you're either going to be hammering on this. This comes out, but it's really stuck in there usually, unless they've been replaced and anti-seize has been in the appropriate place. Now this is where an air hammer comes into play. If it's not moving, you gotta give it some coaxing behind the brake shield. And you'll see that we are making progress. I'm trying not to destroy the dust shield. There's a gap there. So you don't want to air hammer if you're hammering on the bolt holes. Try to get ahead of them. Okay, so I just ran along the edge and I'm pretty much out of there. And there's your bearing. And if you could have saved it, your dust shield. The axle through, I slide the bolts to the wheel bearing through just so I can line them up. When you get your new wheel bearing, usually comes with a sensor. And I take the backing plate and I put anti-seize all over the surrounding area. That way it comes out again easier. And inside the splines for the axle so the axle can't seize. So what we're going to do now is line this up. And you always line up the sensor shield towards the front of the truck at upward angle. So then you get it lined up, push it a little bit, and I start trying to. It's kind of hard because things will probably fight you, be it at an angle. But I try to get some of the bolts threaded started. Same thing on the lowers. You want to draw it in evenly if you can. Alright, and that's about as tight as you can get them until the knuckles back in place. Okay. So now to get the upper ball joint in place, see, this is going to want to fight you. You're going to have the nut ready for the ball joint. Take a pry tool, go under the frame and on the upper control arm, and just push it through. So you can get the threads on there. Alright. Tighten down the upper ball joint. A little bit. Okay, now that this is in place, you can go back and take your 15 mil and really tighten this upper bolt. Push back on the axle a little bit, get your wrench in there. Just get that nice and tight, along with your other. Okay, same thing with the other. Take our 18 mil wrench, and now your wheel bearing's in place. We're going to take our 18 mil wrench and finish tightening down our ball joint. Axle nut, which gets tightened to 177 foot-pounds. I usually use a pry bar, but this breaker bar will work for me, and I use it to pin the studs at the ground for tightening. Alright, that is that axle nut torqued. Now you can take your seal or cap, lightly tap that back in place. So that's sealed up. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take our brake caliper that may look like it's hanging by the brake hose in the video, but it's not. It's being supported by these pieces in the cardboard. Make sure it's back in place. So what I do is now put the bolt Okay, so now that I got the brake hose back in place, you can place your ABS connector back up. And if you got any spots where this won't go back in, or zip ties work, assembled. Yeah, I'm Joe the Auto Guy. Thanks for watching this video. Hope it helped you. Please like and subscribe. You can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and my email's down below.